Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have a returning good brother to the temple, previously here for Project Xseed, and recently has been working on many books in both the Arkwright cycle and as well as the Soul cycle, and just the Cairo saga in general. Now coming back to us with the Specter of Empire, the third book in the Arkwright cycle, which means we'll have a bunch of catching up to do in various forms. The one and only Brian Niemeier. How you doing today, man?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Let me check when the last time I had you on. So that was all the way back in 2023 when I had you on Big Dice Panel 6. I really should do another one of those one of these days.
That was fun.
Indeed.
It's been too long.
Yeah. Obviously, getting multiple people together in one call is easier said than done, but it's certainly something I feel I should try at some point.
Seconded.
But it has been quite a few years since I brought you on for specifically one of your projects on its own. How have you been in the last few years?
Busy, but fruitfully so. Just making culture with no ulterior motives, just for fun, for people who love dark and grim fantasy without the nihilism.
Yeah, so I suppose that's something we can get into. Now, when it comes to how you view dark fantasy, I think we should start with an origin point, since we kind of did that with Mecha when I had you on for Project Xseed. So, what would you say was your first introduction to dark fantasy as a storytelling conceit?
Well, I'd heard about it before, but kind of my baptism by fire in the genre was back in the day when my local anime circle got a hold of fan subs of Berserk and just binged it.
Yeah, I'd say Berserk and Vampire Hunter D are two names I hear a lot when it comes to that.
Yep, seen them both.
Seen them both. Read them both.
Both influences. Yeah.
I would like to see Vampire Hunter D get animated again, but only if Madhouse or Wit Studio was handling it.
Yeah. I would second those choices.
Especially if by some miracle they can get Kawajiri back. He was the director for Bloodlust. And there are significant changes between Bloodlust and the story that he was drawing from, Demon Death Case. The original story was a lot bleaker than Bloodlust was.
Oh, tell me more. I was unaware of this. You've shared a new nugget of information here.
There were a bunch of little changes. Some characters had their particular stories completely different to lean more into the kind of story arcs that Kawajiri was better at. It was less of a I'm changing it to fix it, and more of I'm changing it so that it matches what I know I can do. Versus
Hey, I want to play to your strengths.
And
yeah, I get it. Totally.
Some of the power setups with the Marcus brothers. The Marcus brothers were a lot more asshole-ish in the original story than they were in Bloodlust, and they certainly weren't the nicest folk in the movie, but they were even worse in that. Um, and well, the Hand was still the Hand.
Yeah,
I didn't.
little hand.
The main thing was the fact that the other hunters were worse characters than um, than Meyerlink himself. Meyer didn't change too much. It's more on that gothic horror of sometimes the worst monsters aren't the non-human. The whole
Shades of Romero,
Mhm.
right? Like Dawn of the Dead, original Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. I know a lot of people misinterpret that whole, oh, the humans are the real monsters, but the intent was that sometimes the humans who are pursuing a given monster are doing things even more villainous than what the monster itself is doing.
Right.
That's a staple of gothic horror. Even
Yeah, it's been around.
Yeah, even with something like Frankenstein, there's been interpretations where Victor himself was no saint, as he's been depicted in some stories. He was just as assholish as the monster that he created.
Oh, yeah, in the original book, he's definitely a tarnished tragic hero. If that, he's got skeletons in his closet for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I know that for some who want the whole defined good and evil in their fiction, that is something that has its place, but shouldn't be universal.
Well, that is a subject I've spent the last several years exploring, and it is in fact a major thrust of the Arkwright cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to wax philosophical on the subject of black and white morality, or perhaps I should just say like objective morality in stories. So, I mentioned earlier in the green room that we want to avoid spoilers with the Soul Cycle and the Arkwright cycle, but we want to kind of talk around it. So, I suppose theme won't necessarily spoil any of the plot. So, I set out to create an intentionally dualistic universe, right? So one, kind of like informed by Manichaeism, so that evil is a positive reality that can compete on an even playing field with good and could win, and examining the ramifications there. And turns out, letting the story play out, the characters really came to the same conclusion that, like Aristotle or Augustine of Hippo did, which is that if you try to posit evil as an equal positive force, kind of counterbalancing good, then you have to end up in nihilism, because then either there's no reason not to choose evil, and so good is ridiculous, or they just cancel each other out and there's no such thing as either of them. So, now that doesn't mean you have to moralize. Like, I will agree with you, an author should not get up on the soapbox and deliver a finger-wagging sermon. Like that's just irritating. The point of a story is to tell a story. But what is necessary for the characters' motivations and actions to be internally consistent is they've got to believe something. And the reader has to believe that they believe it. Like a polygraph test. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. And something that I recall saying at one point was, you have to be consistent with that. And to illustrate what I mean, I'll bring up why the whole power rates thing in Deep Space Nine was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
Because Deep Space Nine is a very Shades of Grey kind of setting, and the strongly held beliefs of Sisko are constantly tested by the decisions that he has to make as not only commander but also religious leader and diplomat.
And father.
Yeah. And the idea of the power race as this evil opposite to the prophets is shifting into an absolute good and absolute evil in a setting that's not built to support it. Especially since the prophets are almost this imperceptible thing where they're not it's difficult to explain them, and the writer should not explain them. That kind of thing. You can do the absolute good and evil morality. You can do the Shades of Grey. What you shouldn't do is try and shift one into the other midway through a given project, or not make it clear what side of the aisle you're on when it comes to that.
Exactly. Consistency is all important. In case you didn't see it, there was a post by author Isaac Young a while ago that he recently compiled and put on his Substack, which made much the same point, that for all of DS9's merits, and there are many, morality that it's set up is entirely tonally dissonant with all the rest of Trek. And it's basically the point that he says the wheels came off of Trek as a whole.
When it comes to that part, I don't agree with, if only because a big problem with Roddenberry was that he was too inflexible regarding that vision, and with things like no conflict amongst the crew, and the way Starfleet was portrayed was in some ways far too idyllic, and I think the ultimate expression of what happens when you're too inflexible is why the first two seasons of TNG aren't well liked, because a lot of that was
the early season weirdness.
A lot of that was him trying to show what the real vision was, and the thing that I've repeatedly made fun of Roddenberry about was his insistence that Starfleet is not a military. And he insisted it many times, and I know why he insisted it, but it's still kind of stupid, because you are on a ship, that ship has weapons, you have orders that you have to follow, and if you do not follow those orders, you can be court-martialed. But it's not a military.
I mean, it's right there. Martial. It's in the word.
Military court.
Yeah. Yeah. Roddenberry definitely wanted to have his cake and eat it too a little bit.
And I consider stories like The Inner Light, the one that won a Hugo Award back when that mattered. Roddenberry hated that episode. Would storm up and down the halls telling people how much he hated it.
Wow. That's a new one on me.
Which, don't get me wrong, I appreciate Roddenberry and the like, but I also acknowledge that he was kind of up his own ass on certain things. In the same way, I appreciate John Wick as a designer, but I also acknowledge he's kind of a dick. You take the good with the bad, but when it came now, you're currently doing the Arkwright cycle after doing the Soul cycle. Was it the original plan to do them in two different arc books, or what? Or was there originally a plan to do it in one whole thing?
Short answer, yes. So long answer, this entire saga has had a rather bumpy, twisty origin that spanned 25 years now.
Mm-hmm.
To give you a snapshot, the first book I wrote was the initial draft of Soul Dancer. So that was the story I really wanted to tell. But, as I've often said, every writer is born with a million sucky words in his head, and the only way to overcome them is to drain them out onto the page. So you gotta spend like your first year or two writing, getting the suck out. And then you can start writing good. So about 300,000 of my initial words of suck, about a third, came out in that initial draft of my first novel. Was not well received by beta readers, so I took a step back, and it was pointed out to me that, hey, a lot of this is confusing. Maybe you could go back and like do a prequel that would fill in more of the background. So I molded over and did that. That became Ethereal, which became my first actual published novel 10 years ago this year. And that one clicked. So then I was able to go back with fresh eyes, revise Soul Dancer, create a leaner, meaner version of it. That only succeeded. It won the first Dragon Award for Best Horror Novel. So I was onto something. Now, initially, I had, as I was going back and outlining for the prequel for Soul Dancer, kind of let my imagination run wild, and I ended up with enough material for what I knew would be 4 books. So, the original 4, Ethereal, Soul Dancer, Secret Kings, and Ophion Rising, were all planned beforehand. I basically actually did what George Lucas claimed to do, right? I had all the notes, I had all the outlines for all the plots. So, we finished up those 4 books. Well, in the meantime, I took a step back and did the same thing I did with books 2 and 1 of the Soul Cycle, and just did it with the entire series as a whole, and started filling in background material for the entire cycle, and ended up with 4 more spiral-bound, color-jeweled notebooks full of notes and outlines, which I am now adapting into the Arkwright cycle. You can think of it as what KOTOR is to the original Star Wars trilogy, Arkwright is to Soul Cycle.
Yeah.
But this time, because I've gotten so much more efficient as a writer, I had initially thought that the Arkwright cycle would also be 4 books. It's now looking like 10 or 12. So, Specter of Empire here concludes what my readers are playfully calling Season 1 of the Arkwright cycle, or the Burned Book arc, as I call it. And so next we're going to be moving into the next season.
Yeah. And with that in mind, in the pitch on the backer kit, you describe this particular book, The Specter of Empire, as, and I'm quoting the backer kit here, so, a berserk novel written by Glenn Cook from Mura's notes and edited by Christopher Tolkien. I'd like you to expand on what exactly the method of the madness was with that description.
Absolutely. Well, like I said earlier, Berserk was my main dark fantasy influence. And, I mean, look at the cover that my awesome artist Marcelo Orsi Blanco did. You've got an enormous sword wielded by, like, hideous wolf goat chimera thing, which is lovely and awesome. So, I could definitely see Miura penning, like, an apostle like that, right? But also, thematically, it does get into the whole, well, evil is real. It's not just like an absence of a good, and it has its own agenda, and it means the world harm. So, as Graham Tenos, one of the main antagonists of the series, points out to, like, a young starry-eyed acolyte of one of the good gods in this book. Now look, I used to, like first I thought that, like, the gods were benevolent and they meant us good. And then, after I was at war for long enough, I kind of lost faith in them and decided, well, yeah, there are these powers are fighting amongst themselves, and much like when the elephants tussle, the grass suffers. They're ambivalent toward us, and sometimes we just get crushed like ants, and the best we can do is be ignored. And he tells it, well, no, like now after a lifetime of this, of fighting, I realized, no, some or all of them actively mean us harm. Like the world is trying to kill you, but first it's trying to destroy you. So you've got to act accordingly.
Destroy, they first make mad.
Bingo. Well, this guy is a priest who's saying this, but he's a priest of Elathan, one of the main evil gods. So this is a man who has decided, well, look, evil seems to be winning, so I'm going to get on the winning team. And even if I can't appease the dark powers, I can at least get mine while the getting's good before I'm called to account, right? So very high time preference, but still not an illogical calculus in this universe. So again, kind of like how in Berserk, the problem of evil is not just a stumbling block. Philosophically, it is the closest thing to God.
Yep.
So, Graham echoes that perspective.
And it's interesting you invoked Glenn Cook with this. Obviously, Glenn Cook is primarily known for The Black Company, which may be getting a TTRPG adaptation for the first time sometime next year. I know, I think Green Ronin is working on it. Which, if Green Ronin is working on it, then I have a degree of optimism for it. I'm surprised it took this long, because for the longest time, the closest thing we had to that was the GURPS Myth project, since, the Myth duology, because I don't want to talk about the third game, was heavily inspired by the Black Company. So, what made you bring up the Black Company in particular? What was about it that drew that one, that led you to bring it up in that sentence we mentioned earlier?
Well, when I finally got around to reading The Black Company, and which I will admit took me longer than it should have,
better late than never.
It leapt off the page. Yeah. Like, this guy gets me. Right, we're kind of on the same wavelength. I won't say that like our exact sentence level writing style is the same, but Cook really captures that kind of mood and tone I've always been shooting for. Because you've got this story told by like a military surgeon in this like medieval-ish PMC who's also like the record keeper of the company, and how he is just like matter-of-factly recording some of these frankly atrocities and war crimes. It's just it's all in a day's work. It's all part of the paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this company then crossing paths with the supernatural, like with ancient powers really far beyond their ken, still being like, that's still a paycheck. Like, are the like evil immortal resuscitated wizards paying us? Okay. Found that amusing.
Yeah, it is somewhat amusing that when I came up in the tabletop space, the term fantasy fucking Vietnam was one that got thrown around a lot.
Yes.
And was usually as part of the discourse for those games that build themselves on how gritty they were, which has more or less dialed back. Even with games that are dark fantasy, they don't. Whenever someone tries to boast about how dark and gritty and how lethal their particular brand of combat is, it just results in an eye roll. But it is kind of funny that at least nobody that I was able to find actually took that concept and went all the way with it. Actually tried to do a fantasy spin on the Vietnam War, or at least from the grunt perspective. think the closest we got to that was Black Company, and I'm not going to say if that was any sort of influence. It is something that's a amusing parallel, and you know how I love parallels. But of course, on the other end, you have the remark of edited as if it was edited by Christopher Tolkien, and I'm guessing where that comes in is the consistency of the world you've presented.
Yes, that would be a reference to all of the background lore that I had to collate and staple together in a consistent way and weed out what wasn't working, add stuff that was. So, above and beyond writing, this saga took a steady and dedicated application of the one part of the publishing process that most people overlook, which is editing. Because in addition to being a writer, I'm a professional editor, and I really cut my teeth on this project. Maybe even bit off a bit more than I could chew, but yeah, finally managed to gulp it down.
A man's reach should exceed his grasp for what's a heaven for.
Indeed. This is the brass ring, as it were. So, yeah, I can definitely appreciate it because I appreciate the work of the editor, because as a kid, when it comes to Tolkien, most people prefer Lord of the Rings. Now, there are aficionados who say, no, that The Hobbit is, like, the more quintessential fantasy quest, right? It's more simple, more direct. But it's there and back again. What more do you need? But my favorite was always the Silmarillion, because I'm weird.
You are in good company, my friend. Because I leaned more into the Silmarillion, especially after, because I read the Silmarillion about 3 months after I read through Lord of the Rings, and one of the big things that I took away from was this idea of all those things that are treated as myth and legend in the Lord of the Rings proper. You're seeing how those kind of things develop and seeing them in the context at that time.
Right. And that is what I'm striving to do for the Soul Cycle with the Arkwright Cycle. It is showing you, like, if you want the historic view of what people, like, thousands of years later in the Soul Cycle consider myth and legend. So we're now following these mytho-historical figures through the adventures that eventually led to the events of the Soul Cycle.
Oh yeah. And in that same vein, when it comes to the claim of the quintessential story is the Hobbit, that betrays the idea that there is one story that you have to follow. And I've mentioned this in the past. I kind of resent this notion that if I'm writing fantasy, that there are certain things that I have to do, not because they're good ideas, but because that's what other people have done.
The Writers' Workshop formula-based, in Hollywood, save the cat mentality. I hear you.
I like to call things like that design by gospel, and I've used that term quite a bit in this series. It is that mindset of we do things a certain way because we've always done things a certain way. And I have seen that mindset backfire horribly in the realm of sim racing, where every major sim racing release looks exactly the same. Like, there's not much in the way of a visual or aesthetic difference between R Factor 2, Assetto Corsa, Gran Turismo, Forza. They're using the same set of cars, the same set of tracks, the same pursuit of physics that's ultimately fruitless. And with some of them, using teams that cannot handle that amount of workload, or working on things that no one really asked for, like a USA like R Factor 2 did a USA expansion covering tracks like Daytona and I think Pocono, but it's clear that its AI cannot handle oval tracks. So, but they kept doing it.
Keep hitting your head against that old wall.
Yeah, as well as doing like 17 liveries. They don't have a massive team. They've only got a few dozen people down in Brazil working on R Factor 2. And instead of fixing the AI so that it could work on oval tracks, they're just adding more stuff.
Yeah.
And again trying to focus on this kind of realism that can't really work, which results in a lot of them looking the same. That's that whole design by gospel at its endpoint, where you've got 4 or 5 different franchises that you can't tell apart from each other.
Yeah. And it is an interesting neologism you've cooked up, because what it does is it illustrates that the problem isn't dogma, it's dogmatism. It is applying the concept of absolute truth to an area in which it doesn't apply, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, yeah, I'm against formulas, like formulaic writing.
Yeah.
Like the best example, the hero's journey. Everybody skimmed or like half listened to George Lucas saying, "Oh, I took Campbell's course and I read Here with a Thousand Faces," and immediately took the wrong lesson, which was, oh, well, we need to use Campbell's hero's journey framework as a formula, as this like lockstep rote formula for writing, when neither Campbell nor Lucas ever intended it to be paint by numbers how to write a story guide. It was always descriptive, not prescriptive. And so I'll tell you, the one result of that mistake that really bugs me is Hollywood's obsession with the hero refusing the call at first, even when it makes no sense. They've always got to have the hero like come to the inciting incident and at first be like, "Well, I've got every reason to say yes, but no, because Campbell demands it," or something.
Yeah, and I do want to make explicitly clear, I don't hate the hero's journey. In fact, as much as writing to formula can be a problem, writing for the sake of going against formula can be just as much of a problem. It's a pendulum. Whether you swing too far to the left or too far to the right, the problem is you swung too far. I think the failed lesson was that what's kind of amusing is you can draw a parallel between that and how the Codex Astartes is treated in Warhammer 40k. The wrong way to treat it is if it is this absolute set of rules that you have to follow for every single combat engagement, which was never the intent when Revolte Gilliman wrote it. It was to provide a framework with an inbuilt understanding of this. It cannot possibly cover every single combat scenario, so improvise if need be. Because we all know the first casualty is always the plan.
Right? Never survives enemy contact.
Mm-hmm. And the characters that have gotten a fair bit of shit in that universe have been the ones who assume that you have to follow that there's some sort of failing if the Codex Astartes doesn't agree with a certain decision. This is where you get the meme of the Codex. The Codex does not support this action. The hero's journey is a decent framework, one that does and the monolith as a whole that does cover a lot of different mythologies, a lot of different stories. But a lot of people, whether it be Hollywood or otherwise, are constantly looking for this magic universal formula, basically an anti-life equation, if you want to go that far, or the theory of life, the universe, and everything. Which, if you read Hitchhiker's Guide, you know the answer to that is a joke, because you cannot answer everything with one solution. That is where the problem lies. That inability to be flexible. This idea of, oh, we have to use the hero's journey format.
Or it could be anything. Could be 3-act structure. Could be 5-act because Shakespeare favored it, and we're just going to stop thinking there and just.
I ended up using
ape him. Yeah.
When I was writing Legend Edition, we made frequent references to a 4-act structure that's used across Asia. What's known as Kisho Tenkai.
Ah, yes. Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much seeking to achieve catharsis in the final act as just kind of meditating on the consequences of the character's actions, right?
Yeah. And obviously, it isn't a 1-for-1, but it was used as a guide. It was used as a guideline with a lot of wiggle room, so that people could shift around their particular campaign model. The reason I ended up going with was largely inspired by the setup-focused strike model that Legend of the Five Rings uses, and it's those particular acts are very broad and broad by design. To allow for a theme, if not necessarily a direct path. But
right.
Incidentally, I have seen a few authors put up these sort of reader playlists. What sort of music comes to mind when you are envisioning the world of both the Specter of Empire and just the Arkwright cycle as a whole?
Oh, that's a fascinating question, and I have a direct answer to it because I hired a professional composer to write a theme for the Arkwright cycle.
See, that part I didn't know.
Yeah, let's see. I'll be able to give you a link because it's in the trailer for Lord of Fate, I believe.
Yeah.
But rather than try to verbally paint a picture of sounds, right, mixing our metaphors left and right, it's easier to show rather than tell.
Yeah, I won't be able to show it. I won't be able to show it on stream, obviously, but I will link it in the description. I'll link it on Twitch when the time comes.
Oh, cool. Well, I might have to save that for after the show because it's not uploaded under the YouTube account that I'm currently signed in on. But yeah, think orchestral, somewhat forlorn and whimsical, yet martial. So, okay, you know how often
what immediately comes to mind when you bring that up is the work of Philip Glass.
Ah, I have heard of him.
Uh, I mainly know Philip Glass through the Kotze trilogy, especially Koyaanisqatsi.
Okay. I am unfamiliar. Tell me more.
The Kotze trilogy was a series of art films that were done in the 80s that had no dialogue and had just his music work.
Okay.
And the word itself comes from a word in the Hopi language that can mean crazy life, or more accurately, imbalanced or out of balance life.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
it goes from more droning styles to more grand orchestral styles to more melancholy styles. Just runs the gamut throughout the whole piece.
Okay, yeah. I think we're on the right track here, because even a little, perhaps a few Celtic notes
Mm-hmm.
every now and then, like some keening, but there's a term I'm trying to think of in Japanese, and it's what distinguishes like the Final Fantasy soundtracks from Dragon Quest.
Mm-hmm.
Like the term Uematsu, like applied to his own work, which means like more mature, yeah, maybe even a little wistful or melancholy, as opposed to upbeat.
Mm-hmm.
You get the idea.
Oh yeah. And obviously, I can only speak so much because I never studied music theory in college. But it's one of those things that once you hear the pattern, you can't unhear it.
Exactly. I need to ask David Stewart. He would know exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But with that in mind, I believe you are offering as one of the pledge levels preview chapters for the new book. What would you? How far along presently at time of recording would you say the Specter of Empire is at?
100%.
Oh, it's full done.
It's done. Yeah, because we are offering delivery by Christmas, so it had better be.
Yeah. Which, you know what, having this by Christmas would certainly make sense. uh, Especially given that if I really want to ruin someone's perspective on any fairy tale, I can just tell them the original version of it.
I'll go full Brothers Grimm.
Uh, I had an incident a long time ago where a friend of mine really liked the film Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I said, if you like it, you should read the original book. And my shoulder devil at the time said, say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you well, if you haven't read Hunchback of Notre Dame, it is a story that ends with rocks fall, everyone dies, quite literally.
Well, Victor Hugo, you incorrigible scamp, you.
uh, Hugo did not believe in happy endings. Then again, this is France, so. Look, you've probably seen the meme of the original French flag being a white flag.
Yeah, I think we all have, but I kind of agree with him there. Not in that I don't believe in catharsis, but I do believe in the power of tragedy. Like one comment I've heard repeatedly, like, especially from millennials, is like questioning why tragedy as like a meta genre exists, right? Like, oh, why would anyone want to read a story that would leave you feeling sad? I'm like, why would you not? Like, it's part of the human experience, man. You can't run from it.
Yeah.
And
then a while back had gotten a few people to rewatch The Northman. As an aside, Robert Eggers seems to be one director who seems incapable of missing. Like, everything he's put out so far has been an absolute banger. And when it comes to the Northmen, obviously, yes, it is drawing a lot upon Hamlet. But the reason why I feel like people enjoy that sort of tragedy is everything that happens in a story like that was completely preventable. Or
Yeah, exactly.
let's use, say, the Prince of Egypt, which I know some religious scholars absolutely hate that movie. To that I say, how does it feel being wrong all the time? Oh, yeah,
They're talking to a religious scholar, and I liked it. So proceed.
yeah. Well, let me rephrase that. Religious hipster.
Oh, all right.
You know, that kind of person who thinks that because they studied the Bible more than others, that they're hot shit.
Right.
I enjoyed the fact that Moses and Ramses are brothers who do not want to be put in the situation that they are in, but because of circumstance, pride, and a whole host of other factors, are pushed into that position. Of course, at the same time, Ramses could have just taken the L in the short term, but that's the easy thing to say. On the other hand, because of the culture that he was put in, and the sort of Damocles he has under his head, he can't.
Yeah. That's why tragedy is cathartic, because like kind of for the same reason that like 80s slasher flicks are, you see characters getting the due reward for their behavior, and are they railroaded or faded into it sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but knowing that they still freely choose. Like what a lot of people get is that like the idea of destiny and free will are not incompatible. Like they work with each other, or free will can work within the confines of fate or destiny or providence. And a tragedy isn't just about like the universe picking one guy and going you and just torturing him for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, the classical conclusion of a tragedy is character doesn't get what he wants. Because okay, taking a step back, there are two kinds of stories. One, the protagonist gets what he wants. That is a comedy. It's stripping out any notions of humor. Just a story with a happy ending basically is broadly considered a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
The protagonist does not get what he wants. That is a tragedy. But usually he gets what he needs, but maybe didn't realize it.
Yeah, or in some cases, gets exactly what he wants, but nothing how he wants it.
Yeah.
To reference another sci-fi classic from our childhoods, because you and I are the same relative age. I'd like to bring up how the one person who actually got exactly what he wanted was Veer. Because do you remember what Veer had said to Mr. Morden when Morden tried the whole "what do you want" on him?
Remind us.
It said very specifically, "I'd like to live long enough to see the executioners cut off your head and stick it on a pike as a warning to the next 10 generations that some favors come with too high of a price." And that's exactly what he got.
Oh.
Now, granted, he didn't
point.
kill Morden. That was Londo. Mostly because when Londo found out his own manipulations and was willing to blow up a whole damn island to prove a point, I am beyond the scope of giving any fucks at that point. I'm vastly simplifying out, obviously, but Veer was the one who got what he had wanted, and he, even with all the stuff that happened, always maintained his particular conscience, even if he was completely out of his depth.
Yeah, I really do need to go and revisit Babylon 5. It's been way too long since I've seen it.
Mm-hmm. And I do know that JMS was drawing upon Lord of the Rings as well with that, especially with factions like the Rangers, which very much feel like the Rangers of the North, and doing the whole absolute good and evil in its mythos. But even with that, still doing aspects of Shades of Grey. It's more that they were layered onto each other without having them intersect too much.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But now with the Soul Cycle, that had gone 4 books. Are you planning for the Arkwright Cycle to go that same amount of time?
Oh, it looks like it's going to be way bigger. I'm thinking more like 12. Like 4 seasons or like 4 arcs.
Yeah. If that's the case, I express my deepest sympathies in a few years for some people's shelves.
Thank you for your pity.
I'm counting myself in that, so.
Well, thank you.
I know exactly what I have coming. But,
well, I try to give everyone a good idea of what to expect.
But you had said that you're planning on having it out by Christmas. Are you talking out as far as the digital version, or all versions out by Christmas?
All versions to U.S. domestic backers of the backer kit. Okay, whose backer surveys are completed within 48 hours of receiving them, and whose payments clear, which is a really low bar. So if you can meet those 3 criteria, then yes, we're saying delivery in time to put it in the stocking or under the tree, or just give yourself an enjoy as your little secret. But yeah, we've done the logistics. We're confident we can do it. We've got a special hardcover, which is exclusive to crowdfunders. You're not going to get that on Amazon or through the Kairos Publication Store. We've got the paperback by popular demand. Initially, we're not going to do one, but everyone came up and told me, hey, well, we've got all the other books in paperback. We want a matching set. We want the paperback of this one. So I'm always one to listen to my valued patrons. I said, okay. So we added the paperback. And like you mentioned, yes, there is an ebook. We got you covered. Oh, and in terms of audio, thank you for reminding me of this. As part of the Black Friday deal we've got going on right now, which is just the whole thing. It is every edition of every Kairos Saga book in existence, including our first ever audiobook, or book 1 of the Arkwright Cycle, the Burned book, which does feature the Bravest Cry Arkwright Cycle theme by Boris Tosik. So you can hear it there. That's included, and it is $20 off the market value of all items included in that bundle, but that's this weekend only. Campaign ends Sunday at 2 p.m. Central. So, once again, you now know what to expect. You've been forewarned. So if you want to fill up your shelf with the whole thing, now's your best time to do it.
Oh yeah. I can certainly get that. And I'll be looking forward to seeing that. But with that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here.
Well, the pilgrimage has been worth the journey, if not only for the destination, and you did give me most gracious hospitality and a warm welcome, but because of the knowledge we gained and the friends we made along the way these past 2 years since I last made it up here. So, sincere thanks to you.
And, of course, anytime you see fit to return, whether it's for more of the Arkwright Cycle or just to shitpost about dark fantasy and storytelling, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged.
Thank you, brother.
And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody!
上洛が上長年関税を往年関税を年々重心